Okay. We are live. Welcome everyone on the August 28, 2019 Node.js Diagnostic Working Group meeting. Before we go to the agenda, does anyone has any other topic that would like to add to the agenda or discuss before the agenda?
Not me.
Okay, then just let's go straight to the agenda. Announcements. And it's quite not clear that what is this? Is this an issue or is just a placeholder text here?
It's a placeholder we have in the general meetings if anybody wants to announce or share any information.
Oh, then okay. Then let's go to the Node.js repo. Async hooks do not recognize execution context created when processing denables. Anyone has an update or context on this? See, when was the last update? Okay, looks like people are linking it, but in the last 2 weeks, there wasn't really update on this. Okay, if nobody has anything to add, then let's move to the diagnostic repo items. Proposal inspect store flag. Alexei is not here, so I would expect that we can't really discuss it. Yes, last update was in June. So let's move to the next one. Proposal to drive diagnostic working group initiative as choose user journeys. This is still blocked on the survey, which is mainly blocked on me. No progress here.
Right, I guess the next thing is to need to generate the first set of questions or first draft of questions.
Yes.
Okay, got that.
Perfecto in Node.js. I don't see the Google people here, so let's take a look to the issue. No update here. Diagnostic best practices guide. Irish, I see you are here. Do you have an update on this?
Not really.
Okay.
Now, I guess, Therese, you're away for a while, right?
Yeah. So I plan to resume this work probably in a couple of weeks' time. I've been away for a while, so at this point, I don't have any update on this. Yeah.
But that's possible to change, it sounds like. So.
Okay. Stable API tracking issue. I didn't hear anything that is changed recently, but let's take a look to the issue. No. Still, unfortunately, no. These other, no progress.
Yep.
Okay, then maybe it was a very short diagnostic meeting.
The one thing that wasn't tagged was new meeting time. I don't know if that's worth talking about.
I mean, we should propose new meeting times. And I guess people again start to vote. But to be honest, it was only like 2-3 people who kind of shared interest in this meeting. Right. There would be new time, which is great because then we would double the size of the people here, but it's still not perfect.
Yep.
So I believe in a longer term, maybe we should do other things, but yes, we should start with the meeting time.
Yeah, I mean, because I'd shared with you the spreadsheet we used in some of the other meetings. That might be the way to go, or suggest sometimes one of the two anyway.
Yeah.
Hopefully, the combination of that and it being after summer, we can rebuild some momentum.
I hope.
I think I saw Nodder had tried to join there, but we didn't promote him. Okay, so I see one. Oh, no, it says one attendee. Can you promote him now?
Participants, I think. I don't
Okay.
really see anyone. I mean, I see that attendees 1, but I don't see any people here.
Right. Okay. So joined on the phone. Gonna re-update. We'll update Zoom and client and try again. So maybe we should just give him a couple minutes because he had some stuff he wanted to share that he was working on.
Okay.
Oh, I see. No, it's still back down to.
Okay. Give him another 5 minutes.
Yeah, I think we'll. Yeah, it's probably about right.
If it's
Get
not
it figured out.
working, we can do it in 2 weeks.
Yep.
Hello, can you hear me?
Okay,
Yes.
Okay, so I can join from the phone, but when I join with the latest desktop client, I join audio, but I cannot unmute, and I'm not allowed to send anything on chat. So don't know how to proceed with that. I'm gonna try to join once again.
Okay. If it's not urgent, we can also reschedule the next one. It's up to you.
Yeah, I would rather try to do it today because I have a child that occupies my time at this hour always, and this week is the only exception. So this is my chance to do it without causing trouble. Yeah, so I joined from desktop and I can hear myself, but when I join audio, I'm muted. And
do you need to promote him now, Peter?
I did.
Okay, there. So maybe now.
So I'm promoted on the phone, not on the desktop.
Yeah, unfortunately, your desktop is like, yeah, that person does not show up as somebody that the promote button is there, I don't think.
Okay, so let me then sign in to Zoom with my work account.
Because I seem to remember Gabriel had that issue sometimes as well. There's something to do with client or.
Okay, just a minute. I need to two-factor now, and I'm gonna try again with my work account. Looks like it's going to work now.
Okay, yeah, you seem to be in.
Okay, so I disconnected the phone one, not to confuse anybody, and we can finally try it out.
Okay.
Okay, so should I share the screen to show you what I wanted to get feedback on?
Yes, please.
Right. Okay. So this is Debugging Aid is a small project where I experiment with tools to try new things I could do to help diagnose potential problems with an application running on the server. I guess it's mostly useful for the server, but might also work for the IoT use cases and similar. And I'm going to go through the ideas here, and if you're interested in any, we can explore them a bit more. I'm just going to demo them first and explain what they're using. So the first one, oh wait, I need to move the Zoom controls to see something myself. The first one is a recent thing I tried to get something similar to a network log in Node. It's a very tiny script that when you run your code, it logs to the console outgoing requests. It tells you what the URL was and gives you a stack trace, hopefully pointing to the last bits of code that were active in order to send the request. So this should be helpful to identify if the request is going out at all, or if something unusual is happening in the application where some module that you didn't expect is sending out HTTP requests. I started exploring this topic, looking into ways to detect or even stop modules that you didn't want to send things out from sending things out. And this is effectively just giving you the URL and nothing else, because it uses a man-in-the-middle package to sniff on anything that uses sockets. It's fairly simple.
That monkey patch is the HTTP client? Or
it's dependent on the MITM package, which actually hooks into the socket implementations of the net internal module.
okay.
So HTTP is using that, and if you're opening sockets directly, it's also using that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I would be interested if you know of any prior art, anyone trying to do that, other than the good old node inspect, which had a network panel, which is no longer possible as far as I know. Now, this is a tool that I think I already mentioned before. This is leveraging a library that detects when event loop is blocked, but it doesn't do it the old funny way with set timeouts, but instead it uses async hooks for that. So it can also give you a stack trace. So I have an example code which has a function that loops over some string concatenation. And it detects it in various places. So first there's the function logs a metric from console time, how long it was looping. And then this is the output. This is the time that async hooks measured. and a stack trace. So this is effectively giving you stack traces pointing to the last asynchronous jump before the loop blocking happened. And it's been tested by a few people. So there's a separate repository where it's called blocked-at. And this one tool is just wrapping it into something you can require, because the idea is that you run nodes, you require a certain tool from the package, run your app, and there's nothing else to know about it. You just get additional output from the application. So I don't need to do anything specific to get this to run. Another experiment very recent is using probably somewhat of a hack. I noticed that for requiring modules, even if you require an internal module, Node is going to check the require cache for it. So I'm adding a getter and setter to a given ID in the require cache, and that lets me, in this case, give you a stack trace to every location where the net module was required. So I'm running an example where a few other things require, in this case, it's tough cookie that requires it, and the network agents from request or got, and I can detect all of these that way. My plan is to open an additional issue and figure out if this is a desired behavior at all, or if I'm using something that's not supposed to happen. But it also works if you provide a full path to a module, and this is desired behavior that the full path is an ID in the cache. I'm just wondering if when you require net, it indeed should check if it exists in the cache of loaded modules, and then proceed to load it from the internal location. Anyone has any thoughts on that?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay, so yeah, so this this seems also to be useful to detect when a package wants to send outbound request. They probably need to require net or get it as a transitional require somewhere, so you get the full stack trace, and you find out about all the locations where this internal module is used. Okay, this one's pretty boring. This just wraps around the hooks for promises, but this is a tool that someone can install. They don't have to know what to do in the codes. They just run it, and they get multiple results and missing catch on promises. So if unhandled promise is silenced, it's catching that too, and you get consistent output for anything else possible to catch. That's very simple. And the last one is something I'm still working on trying to figure out, and this is taking. Okay, so you run it with trace events enabled for perf, because I am experimenting with using that as output, and then it uses hooks to map out the flow of the application, and the result is supposed to be somewhat probably way better than what you can see here, but this is an early experiment where you get, how do I zoom in? Okay, maybe this one. So you get information about particular functions that were callbacks to async jumps or promises in any way. And this measures the time and displays the time here. I'm working on getting these d something undefined to be the function name. The numbers here are coming from the async context. So this is an experiment to visualize the asynchronous flow of your code in performance tracing, and notice how long a synchronous execution takes on a graph. So this is somewhat similar to bprof potentially, or to some of the tools from Nearform, but this is actually 30 lines of code at this point, I guess. So I'm checking if this is even feasible to do as a tiny tool. So yeah, these are my experiments. I wanted to get feedback on if you think there's room for that. If any of these seems interesting to introduce to wider audience, I'm gonna continue to look for what's possible with new stuff that's available in Node. Yeah, that's all I wanted to show.
Sorry, I have a hard stop at 2, so I have to drop off now, but I'll take a look at that and see if I have any comments. Talk to you later.
Okay.
On our side, thanks for the demo. So what would be, how do you imagine this tool to be used? So it's like a production tool, or it's more like a local debugging tool, or both? Or what's your vision around this?
So the target audience for this are developers who are working on an application and want to assess certain aspects of it in their local environment. It could be used in production if someone's desperate to find out what's happening, but generally I'm assuming this would be used in similar situations when a debugger is used. So instead of using a debugger to go through an application step by step and sometimes maybe affect the timings of the flow and thus eliminating a bug, if you only need to get information about particular things and you don't really need to go step by step through the whole application to figure one thing out, these tools could be useful to partially give you the information that you would normally get from a bigger developer tool. And all you need to do is -- require and choose the right tool. So this would be lightweight and quick way to get some information out of your app. And potentially these experiments could be useful for building something else. Like if we don't have a network panel still in a few months or a year, maybe it's worth looking into this, monkey patching net and catching that and sending it to some interface. That's always an option.
Okay, so basically, maybe it would be something that locally you always run your node process with this enhancement, and it's kind of a warning message, like proactively finding bugs in your code.
Yeah, this produces additional logs that you wouldn't normally get without putting them in place or a lot of instrumentation. It gives you context information. So when you're running an app that's supposed to be making some request, and based on that performing a different action, you either have to patch your code to see if the request is even coming out if you don't add enough logging at the right time, or you can use one of the tools to display all the outgoing traffic. Also, when reviewing your dependencies that you've added to your app, this seems reasonable to check if they're not making external requests. So this is aimed at developers in the development stage, not a tool for production debugging, unless unless you want to disturb your application, because I don't think async hooks are recommended to run in production at this point. Right?
Yep, totally makes sense. I think it's cool. I like the idea. Yeah, but I don't have more feedback to share at this moment.
Okay. I wasn't expecting a lot of feedback right away, but I gladly showed what this is all about.
I mean, these are all valid problems. I like the idea of proactively kind of console logging, warning about them in debugging environment. Yeah, so my feedback is, yes, it looks useful. Yeah, basically.
Okay. Do you happen to know, or at least who to ask, or where to go with this cache checking? So, you know, I did something really funny with that.
I would definitely reach out to Matteo Collina, both because he works for Nifrom, so he's working on the Bubble Prof and all the other things what you mentioned, and he's also member of the TSC and the Node contributor. So I think if he can get his attention, then it's definitely something which can be carried over. That's my opinion.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So if there's no other feedback, I'm not gonna keep you on the call.
Okay. We don't have any other topics to discuss for today. So thank you for the demo, and that's it for today.
Oh, one more thing, if you're
Yep.
still there. Do you happen to know how to, if it's even possible to trigger output from perf hooks without getting the whole application to gracefully stop? Because if I Control C the application or do process exit, I don't get this output. Only if I finish all the asynchronous tasks and disconnect all the servers and everything, the app ends and prints out the file.
Personally, I don't know the answer.
Yeah, me neither. Maybe Matthew Colina or James, since they worked on the perf hooks, they might have some better context on that.
Okay. It's possible that I never reached the enough size of the file to get dumped by default without waiting for the app to end, but I'm really not sure how this works and didn't find it documented. There might be a threshold at which the file prints out by default. Okay, so I'm gonna reach out and ask that question elsewhere. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye.